Hello, welcome back to my channel, Thrifty Day. On today's episode, I'm going to be doing a journal with me, and it's going to be all about my daughter's recent trip to summer camp. She had a lot of fun. She took some really sweet pictures and videos, and I just sort of wanted to document that time because I know it was really special to her. This is some of the ephemera that I use. There's vintage children's book pages, some playing cards, some fabric, her little wristbands from summer camp, and some photos of Abby and her friend. All right, so let's get started. I have all this ephemera. I'm just going to sort of sort through it. I usually try to find the bigger pieces to use first. I'm just going to set my cute little photos aside and get started on creating a nice base for this layout. So the first couple things I choose to work with are the vintage book page and that large scrap of fabric. I love that fabric. I recently found it at an estate sale. It's so beautiful, and I swear I had a couch that same print growing up in my living room. And I wish I still had it. It was so cool. It was just very mid-century modern. Anyway, so I know I want to use that fabric because it makes me feel nostalgic. And I found this book page that was just so cute. It has a mushroom and a chick, and the colors were perfect. And so I'm just going to use my glue stick and glue it right down onto the side, one side of the layout. And that will be the base for one side, and then the fabric will be the base for the other side. So now that the paper's on, I'm going to move over to that fabric piece. And it's obviously too big, so I'm just going to cut it down so that it fits on the page nicely. Sometimes I cut fabric, and sometimes I just make a little snip and rip it down the side. It's going to be mostly covered up anyway, so it doesn't need to look perfect. I'm going to use PVA glue because it is much stronger than a glue stick. And I'm just going to brush it on to the page so that I could put the fabric down onto the paper. And I don't want to use a lot because I want the fabric to not get sticky or feel clumpy. I just want to use a very thin layer so that when I stick that fabric down, it'll stay in place. I tend to use a lot of yellows and oranges and browns in my journal because those are really my favorite. And I think it's because I'm a 70s girl. I was born in the 70s. So for me, it's a very nostalgic color palette. So you'll see it throughout a lot of my journals. I really love 70s fashion. I love 70s style. I love 70s interior. And I think that's reflected in my journals as well. So I'm just going to move on to the next step. I'm going to use this paper bag as a pocket for those two photos. I think more and more I like making my journal less scrapbooky and more creative, but I never want to use that photo aspect. So I guess what I'm always trying to do is find different ways to display or store my photos within my journal, but not necessarily always make them the main focal point of a layout. So I'm going to use this little half paper bag as a pocket to stick those photos into. And then the kind of really neat part about that is if I want to add other photos or memories from her summer camp, I can continue to do that in the future and just keep sticking them in that pocket. So this is just a little print that says, "Here comes the sun," which seemed appropriate for this layout. And so I'm just going to trim it down and put that on the cover, not the cover, I guess the front of that little pocket. The colors are perfect, and I love that song. So I'm going to use double stick tape on the back of that whole bag and just stick it right down over that children's book page. You'll still be able to see the book page a little bit on the top, and the bag is somewhat transparent, so it was a win-win. And since I know that that bag will be holding photos, I also use my stapler just right on the side to staple it down to make sure that it stays really secure to the page. So I'm really happy with how this came out. I'm just going to stick my photos in to make sure that it all fits correctly, and I love the way that looks. I don't lose any of the book page, but I have a really cute place to store my photos now. And now I'm excited to add that little "Here Comes the Sun" print. It's really cute. The colors are perfect. I love that song, so it's a win-win. And I just used double stick tape to put it right onto the pocket. And I'm going to use some washi tape also, just on the side and then on the top and the bottom. It just adds a little bit of dimension to the page. And I feel like every time you add another layer on top of something, it just makes whatever you're working on a little bit more interesting. So I love washi tape. I use it all the time. So for the other side of the layout, it was a little bit more of a puzzle for me. I had several pieces I knew I wanted to fit on there, but I don't really have any clear direction. So the most direction I had for this side was that I wanted to have space to journal. But other than that, I just had a bunch of odds and ends that I knew I kind of wanted to fit onto that page. That little owl, I love the colors. It was a scrap from a recent journal I made, so I wanted that to go on there. I have a whole selection of adorable sort of 70s playing cards, so I knew I wanted one of those on there. So really this is just me going back and forth, trying to figure out what's going to fit and what's most compatible for my needs for this particular layout. So that's what you're watching me do here. You're watching me just sort of figure it all out. So right about here is where I think I finally figured out what I'm going to do. And so I'm going to get my PVA glue, and I'm going to glue that vintage book page piece right onto the page, and that will be my main journaling space. That was out of a really old book, and I just loved that sort of natural browning of the page, and I think that added a lot of character. And so I'll be able to journal just right onto that page. And then that little owl scrap was out of a vintage Bambi book, but how cute. And the colors were perfect. So I used a tiny bit of double stick tape, mainly just to stick to the page so I could staple it on there. And I use a stapler a lot. It's just easy. And then the next thing I'm going to do is add that vintage playing card, perfect colors. And again, I'm just going to staple it right onto the page. Sometimes I go into these journal layout videos with a lot of direction, and I really know where the layout's going to go, and it's a little bit better planned out. But this one I really didn't have a clear direction. So a lot of this video is me just sort of flying by the seat of my pants and figuring it out. And so I just put some of that really cute washi tape on there. I recently found that in my stock. I didn't even realize I had it, so now I've been using it and everything. And these were the wristbands Abby had to wear as a camper at her little summer camp. So I said, don't throw those away when she took them off. And I clipped off the kind of thicker parts, and I'm just going to staple them right onto the page as a little memory. And now what I'm going to do is just put a thin black layer, outline rather, onto that journal space, just so it will pop off the page a little bit more. It's just sort of like a frame, and it's very simple. It's just sort of a jagged black line, but I think it will make that little book page pop and make it stand out a little bit better. And these are stickers. If you've ever ordered a window style journal from me, you may have gotten some of these little stickers in a wax paper bag in your journal as ephemera. I do love them. They're really cute. They're sort of vintage. They came in this sweet little box. I bought them on Etsy. They were very inexpensive. And so I'm just going to add a few. They're actually transparent stickers, so if you take the back off and put them on, they stick by themselves. But they're kind of see-through, which sometimes I like and sometimes I don't. So when I don't want it to be super transparent, I actually just glue put some glue on the back and stick it right down so it looks a little bit more like paper and less like a transparent sticker. So I'm nearing the end of this layout. I'm very happy with how it looks. It has a super 70s vibe, which I think is really cute, and I know that's on a lot of my layouts, but that's kind of my personal style, so I love it. I'm also going to add a few more stickers in the same. Instead of taking off the back, I'm actually just going to glue on the back so that it's not so transparent. And then I'm going to do my journaling and add some of those tiny word stickers. But other than that, I think this layout is done and I love it. I'm so happy. So while I get my journaling done, I would just like to ask you to hit that like button and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't before. It really helps boost my channel and I'd be super grateful if you did. I'm just going to scribble Camp 2021 in that little label that's off to the side there. And then when I thought the page was done, I remembered I had some really cute clear sticker tape. So I'm going to add that just to the side of that children's book page. The colors were perfect. And so it was a very last minute addition, but I actually think it adds a lot of character and that makes me happy. So now I'm just going to put my photos right back in and I'm super happy with how this layout came out. Here is the finished product. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you have a really great week. I hope you were inspired and be on the lookout for another YouTube coming very soon of a flip through of some of my more recent window style journals. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.